Welcome back to Obligor 101. This is session number 7. Today we're discussing detailed design and fabrication. Any project that has three-dimensional or structural elements will need to go through a detailed design process. Now, don't get me wrong, two-dimensional projects also go through this, but it's usually much less arduous. This session is going to touch on what happens in a detailed design process review leading up to the fabrication process. And I say touch on because it's an incredibly, incredibly detailed and long process. And so we can't possibly get into all of it today, but I just want to give you a sense of what that looks like.
It's a lot of work to create artwork in the public realm. There's a lot of red tape that comes with it because you have to think about, the safety and the security and, working with materials that are durable and getting site permissions and all of that headache. But at the end of the day, I think the reason people do it is because it is so the outcome is so special and because you can end up with such a unique experience. It's almost the journey to get there is just as good as the final product.
So we're going to talk about the detailed design requirements for working with art in public spaces, how to find a fabricator if you're not doing it yourself, and we'll touch a little bit on warranties. So while the concept is the idea for the artwork, the detailed design is all of the very, very specific information about how that idea is going to be made into reality. This information is going to inform how the project is installed, how it's cared for in the future, and even how it's eventually removed. Okay, nobody wants to hear this, but the detailed design process can be an incredibly arduous process. And it's very challenging for some artists, especially if you've never been through it before. Let me give you a couple tips for success. You need to rely very heavily on your project manager. So your project manager is the translator between all of the different groups that have a say in this detailed design process. They're the ones who are going to make sure that all of the needs are being met and that any of the concerns that are being expressed are translated to you and how you need to make that happen within you.
Your project manager, I think you should rely on them for um translating, they're the go between the design team and stakeholders and all those people and the city and the government and and I mean as an artist a lot of things because it's not taught in school are new, and the project manager is that person who can translate and tell you exactly what it means because a lot of project managers are artists anyway, so they can kind of put it into words that are easy to understand. Yeah.
You want to make sure that you partner with other people with specific types of expertise. Again, you're an artist. You're not expected to do all of the things all of the time. So while you come with a very specific high level skill set, and that's about your creativity and these amazing ideas that you create in order to put them into the community, sometimes bringing those ideas to life requires some other levels of expertise, such as landscape architects, engineers, other people who can help you understand how to build it effectively.
For one person, it was too much. Like to begin with, and secondly, even those people who come there to, let's say, to fix the light box or to adjust the framing. For example, we had to get contractor to fix it. So the first thing was the budget was very tight. So I had to play around, have to get different quotes to get a lower amount to pay. But at the end, the good thing is because you help me a lot, and also the community, like all those who participated helped me a lot, and took some of the burdens from that budget, and you secured your difference.
Please be patient and know that everybody is just doing their best. So, in the detailed design process, a lot of people look at the detailed design document. A lot of people have criticisms from various different perspectives based on their own needs. Every single one of these people are simply trying to ensure that the project that you're making is going to work well in the public realm. That's it. So if you trust that they all have the best interest of the project at heart, then you'll start to understand that any criticisms that they make are not of you. They're simply just working to ensure the success of the project.
Well, I think maybe what I remember mostly in the detail design process, you bring what you think is right, but the team or the detail design um, how do you call them, committee, maybe has different opinion and how they perceive the perceive what I provided. So if they give me feedback, I sometimes it might be very challenging, but it's a very helpful process because after all, everybody is working towards one goal to achieve perfect work, just to get to certain great result. So I took it positively, and I'm glad I did that. Um, and most of the time, I think I was very lenient. I was very positive about all the changes suggested, and it helped me a lot. So I really appreciate this. I really appreciate there are such opportunities in the middle of that process, because those the committee is made up of different experienced people. From some of them have got maybe management skill, some of them have got artistic skill. So whatever they give me helped me uh, big time, other than just like they were like if I assume they were trying to divert me from what I'm thinking, I would have been very wrong. I would have been very wrong.
So here's a list of many of the elements that can go into a detailed design process. As you see, there's a lot of things to think about. So it includes things like building and development permits, engineering requirements, historical regulations, bylaws, environmental impact reporting, health and safety requirements, SEPTED, which is public safety, electrical engineering, prime contracting and prime contractors, lengthened warranty and lifespan based on specific elements within, remediation, materials restrictions, and overall warranties for the project. There are many, many elements that are considered, and with every new idea that an artist creates, new things come up that we haven't thought of before, and new people have to come in and look at the detailed design report and have some feedback for you. Again, it is an arduous process that's intended to ensure the success of the project for as long as possible in the public realm.
So I'm considered more of a specialist because I have the background. I was in consulting for 10 plus years. So I've sat on that side of the table having the conversations with the people at the city and other development authorities. And so I know what it's like sitting there and being asked questions. I'm like, really, that question? So you're able to, I can speak to that. And then being at the city for another 10 plus years, I understand what's happening from this side so I can support the technical conversations.
So what happens is this detailed design document is prepared by the artist with any support people that need to come in and provide feedback. And then it's reviewed by all potential partners, shareholders, and relevant parties who may have any considerations regarding the artwork. The detailed design must continue to be reviewed and revised until all of the concerns are alleviated, and only then 100% approval is reached. Well, your fabricator needs to be found before you detail design so that they can provide an accurate quote that's included in that detailed design. And a lot of fabricators have engineers or landscape architects on staff who can support your process. So finding a large fabrication firm can be advantageous depending on the scale or the budget of your project. Artists can be their own fabricators, but not always, which is why fabrication is a separate line item in your budget, because sometimes it's outsourced, sometimes it's something that you do as an additional skill. Finding a fabricator is an integral part of your detailed design process, so you need to know who's going to make it before you begin the detailed design. Who's going to make it for you is going to inform this detailed design process. It's also going to inform the budget. So there are some full-service public art fabricators out there. They're really excellent companies. Basically, you work with them, you share the concept with them, and they work with you to do the detailed design. They have in-house engineers, landscape architects, all the people who will do the drawings for you so that you can complete that detailed design process with ease. It's great. They're wonderful service providers and really, really excellent at making public art. They're also very expensive. So often those fabricators aren't brought in unless it's a big budget project. So in the meantime, if your budget isn't quite that big yet and you can't quite work with the full-scale fabricators at this time, how do you find ways to build the gradients into your detailed design process? So a lot of artists fabricate themselves when they're beginning. So they have to actually work through the concept through the detailed design elements. They have to build it. They have to do the detailed design report. This is why it's a little nerve-wracking when you're new to this as an artist. That's where you want to bring in people like engineers, even friends and family who might have some engineering support and background who can help you draw the drawings, do the spec sheets, everything that you need in order to support that detailed design process. Eventually, what happens over time is you develop relationships with certain services that assist you in this detailed design process. So those might be fabricators who only do one component of your project. Some examples of fabricators who might simply do one small component of a larger project would be printers for, say, vinyl wraps or banners. Working with metal or woodworkers who might be doing one specific component within a project, such as if you're developing a bench or perhaps some type of sculptural elements. What you're looking for is relationships with fabricators who you trust, who you know will support your own creative vision and make it into a beautiful reality for you and with you. So remember, you're the artist. The vision is still yours. The artistic integrity of the entire project, the copyright and the moral rights are yours. Your fabricator is someone you trust to help make that vision a reality. Your relationship with your fabricator will assist you in this detailed design process by helping you to include all of those elements that you need to include effectively to get that 100% approval that you need for your detailed design review. And then there are large-scale public art fabricators. So there are a few companies who provide a full service model, and you would come in, you would contract them, and they would do all of the detailed design components for you, as well as build it based on those detailed design requirements. So a lot of people tend to think of detailed design as only something that happens once you hit a three-dimensional artwork. And admittedly, it is much more arduous the minute you start to lift something even a centimeter off of a wall and there are attachments required or glue or bolts or anything like that. That's when you start to get into a much more rigorous detailed design process. But even with a two-dimensional project, maybe where you're just applying paint to a wall, there are still in-depth considerations for the detailed design that will ensure that the artwork lasts as long as possible. AJ's resource guide really gets into some of the technical information that would be required for the detailed design of a mural. He talks about the type of paint that you would use, whether or not it's spray paint, or it's house paint, or it's acrylic or oil paint, how you prime, how you cover, what other media you might include in your project. He talks about brushes, rollers, lifts, ladders, sprayers, scaffolding, any PPE that you need to protect the artist and also to protect the public from the site. He talks about direct-to-surface painting versus painting on panels, the types of surfaces that you might have to paint on, whether you're working on unpainted surfaces or aluminum composites. Metal's always tricky in the external realm. He talks about placement, structure, any type of coating on top, sacrificial or non-sacrificial coatings, which are anti-graffiti coatings, and how to clean the artwork in the end. These are all considerations that are part of your detailed design process before you go into fabrication. And again, all of this is so that you're planning for the end from the beginning. You want to ensure that the artwork lasts as long as possible, protecting your art beautifully in the public realm. And the only way to do that is to consider all of these elements every step of the way to make sure that you get it to where it needs to be at the end. AJ's resource guide will be really helpful for you to look at some of those considerations. Even if you're doing a 2D project, they start to help you think about what you might have to consider when you're doing a 3D project. But also he touches on the elements that you need for your installation plan. So you do your detailed design, you do your fabrication, and then you actually install. Now, remember when you're working with a fabricator to get a warranty from them as well. So it is standard in a public art contract that you would require a 2-year warranty on any permanent artwork. That means that you're guaranteeing your work will be able to live effectively in the public realm for at least 2 years. It ensures that the quality of the workmanship is high and that the piece is not causing any economic burden to the city or the commissioning body in the time of its lifespan.
Artworks that are under warranty are still under the care of us as stewards of the collection while they're under warranty. But if a deficiency arises with the artwork during the warranty period that is due to an issue with fabrication or something that could have been controlled and should have been controlled, then we would pursue warranty coverage to cover the costs of those repairs. Um, we really encourage artists to get warranties from their fabricators, and we have specifications for different types of materials, how long of a warranty we would recommend for different types of things. But we don't want that burden to be falling on the artist. So we generally require that the fabricators include the city on the warranties for those components of the work.
So, if you're an artist who's fabricating your own work, then you are the one who's responsible for that warranty. But if you have hired an external fabricator for any aspect of your artwork, you want to ensure in your subcontract with those fabricators that they have the same warranty applied that you do. If you're an artist who works in 2D media and you want to start moving toward more 3D media, how do you do that? What are the first steps in starting to take your work off the wall? So again, begin with a centimeter. Begin with just a little bit off the wall. Maybe it's panels attached to the wall. Those can be metal cutouts, they can be actual wood panels. Every time that you have to attach something to something else and affect the structural integrity of something that you're attaching to, that's when detailed design becomes more complicated. If you're going to put bolts into something, we need to know, are those bolts going to rust? How are they going to react to the environment we live within? What structure are you screwing into? What materiality is attached to? Are there any historical elements to the building that you're attaching to that need to be considered? What are the maintenance issues if that needs to be removed over time? So starting with something as simple as a couple of screws will help you start to understand the detailed design process in more detail.
Just follow all the steps, because, Kata provided such a really fantastic list of things that they wanted for the detailed design. And I always think about what if I was trying to describe this to my grandma or someone who has no understanding of what the art is, or even maybe the medium or how technology works or any of those things. How would I be able to walk them through step by step every little piece so that they could have an understanding of how this works and how it's put together and how to keep it safe and all of those details that are required at a detailed design review. And just like be overly detailed, put in as much as possible. And, if you buy something off of Amazon, get the spec sheet off of Amazon that has all the information about what you bought and include it with the work, even if it's just screws or whatever, because then you have everything listed out and you can really expect the other person to understand what all those pieces are and how to keep them safe and keep them long lasting.
I really learned a lot in that project because I've never really done much. I really had no experience in public art. And there's so much you have to consider when you're doing public art. element. What's really important, what biggest lesson I've learned was the elements. Outside elements is really tricky than inside.
Especially with metal, right?
Especially with metal, yes. Metal um is not so it's like changeable in the weather. It can change in the weather. So you gotta think about the environment of where your sculpture or where the metal's gonna go, what material to use.
Another thing to think about if you want to look at detailed design or start to break away from just two-dimensional work is augmented reality or any type of digital media such as projection mapping. So these are elements that take what is a flat surface and they start to add a whole new component to it that isn't just that 2D. So it's something that adds a technical element that brings it to life in a new way. And you have to consider in your detail design how that's going to live into the future. Digital media is transforming daily. All of the technology changes all the time. Websites that might host things could be defunct in 2 months. So, how do you maintain a digital online presence for an artwork that exists outside of the 2D realm, but still needs to live over a lengthened period of time? These are detailed design questions. Where is this artwork going to live? How is it going to live for as long as possible in its perfect state?
Initially, we thought for maintenance under AR, when we were finishing the project, was just the QR code on the wall. Because we thought, okay, yeah, like the city just wants to make sure that the QR code is going to stay there for a few years and it doesn't go away. But it was a little bit more technical than that, which is great. But and then in doing that, we also figured out how some of the city documents weren't even in the templates. They weren't anything to account for the AR part of it because everything was, I mean, fair enough, because it's pretty new. So everything was either film, video, audio, or it's web based.
Another way to expand or step away from simply a 2D surface would be to increase your community engagement components. A project that did that really, really well was with my friends Rauri and Pauli, who did Lost and Found at the Chinese Cultural Center here in Calgary. This particular project was inspired by recipes. So they worked really hard to do some community engagement, gather some recipes that might be long lost, and put them together into a cookbook. That cookbook lives online. It's a digital copy. There's also a hard copy that floats around the Chinese Cultural Center, but it always lives digitally. That cookbook then inspired a mural, and the mural itself wasn't simply a 2D mural, it was a multi-surface mural, so that it had some layering to it, and it existed on stands so that that mural can actually be moved and taken to different places within the Chinese Cultural Center based on any events that they might be having, which are often food-based events. So they've taken what are these kind of traditionally 2D surfaces and expanded them just a little bit by adding a digital element and starting to make a mural a little bit more 3D. In addition to that, they were able to partner with a fabricator in town and actually create a character out of this bok choy character that came to life through this cookbook. And that is a sculpture now that sits within the Chinese Culture Center.
Previously, we hadn't done large 3D sculptural works. And a lot of our stuff is more like 2D stylistic. So it was like, how do you go from that 2D to 3D and what does it look like in the end?
Okay, 2D, there's a technical, okay? So in animation, there's a turnaround sheet. So what that is if you have a character and he's one pose, you imagine what he looks like if he's facing in that direction, and then the back and the front. And so once you have most of the angles, you can then make a 3D. And then you have to find someone who does 3D modeling. Now that's beyond our expertise, and that's why we work with Carvel, because they have a whole team that kind of do it all. We just have to hand them a piece of paper and a napkin saying, this is my idea. And like, all right, well, we'll come back in a week or two and this is look close enough.
Well,
And
but we didn't hand them a piece of paper
Yeah.
and a napkin.
I did the turnaround. I did a
Yeah.
clay model and
We
everything.
did clay model.
Yeah, I did as much as I could.
Yeah.
And it helped. The extra effort did help them
Yeah.
see it, because other people can't see what's in your own head. And that's where communication and patience really come to light. And the teams on both sides have to be able to find that communication to do that. So communication is key. How do you bring 2D to 3D? Well, you have to communicate with the right people. Pretty much that's what it is.
So this project use community engagement to expand upon a 2D surface and actually developed into various different aspects of a project based on the needs of that project. What an exciting way to do it. Partnerships and collaborations will always help push you outside of your practice. So in the same way community engagement might inform or change how you do things as you start to expand your practice, the more you partner with other artists or other skilled laborers or other people who work in new ways, the more that will expand how you do this work. A great example of this is the project in West Hillhurst called Rooted in Community by Blank Page Studio. And they did community walks where they looked at the plants that lived within the community and started to draw attention to those plants and how they were our partners and our community members with us every single day.
Reciprocity is, I think, really important too, at least especially within the way that I was brought up through my Cree background and Sampi Cree. And, the elders always talked about the importance of when you walk out your door, that you introduce yourself. And even if it's your own front door, that every day you never know what type of interaction you're going to have. And that extends beyond just your neighbors or the people that are walking by, but it's the environment. So, we say that the earth, which, a ski or the land is more than just what we see as being this sort of physical ground that we're standing upon. It encompasses like all of the things, all of the aspects, and even the things that are in the in between, like stuff that you can't really see. So when you enter into the environment, in a way that's it's honoring is and in the way of just acknowledging that I'm here, I'm Tiffany, I'm out my door, and I'm open to the experiences of the world. There's a reciprocity that you start to foster with the environment, and I think in that you also get there's more receptivity. So you start to notice things in a different way that you wouldn't before. Like, we talk about the color or just talking about, oh, I never saw that magpie there, or this type of bird, or this person, and then you realize that that engagement with the outside world is not just transactional. It's reciprocal. And I think the biggest thing for me at least is the understanding that humans, or at least what I would like to bring forward to people, the understanding is that we are nature, that humans are nature as well. We're not separated. We're not a separate thing or a part of, we are a part of it as opposed to being a part.
So because Tiffany was able to bring her knowledge as a medicine healer to this practice, working with the community, sharing stories, taking people on walks, informing them of something new, Daniel was able to share that information in a new way through the final artworks that he created within the community. What a great way to expand on a practice by partnering with other people to increase the knowledge.
I think it's kind of like a good ping pong match, we definitely bounce ideas off each other, and that's just every day, all the time. So when we started kind of getting better at it, I think we were going for longer, right? Like this idea would bounce back, and then we would just kind of help to develop a better conversation about particular ideas. I've referred to Tiffany before as an idea smith. She kind of like pounds an idea into something that is really like a good result at the end. So working together, I think, as a partnership has been really helpful to kind of bring ideas from just sort of a place where you'd spit them out to where they actually might make sense, not just to ourselves, but hopefully out into the world as well.
Yeah, Daniel has a ability to take the visions that we talk about and then create this outcome in it. And so we talk about various different processes, and then he is able to execute them so wonderfully.
So hopefully that gives you some ideas on why detailed design is important, why detailed design is difficult, how you can manage those difficulties with a little bit more ease to inform your fabrication process. Next up, we're going to talk a little bit more about installation itself and the requirements needed for installing something in the public realm.